"You're famous," Ju told him with a smile. "And you've helped others like you get a second chance." Later that evening, Krul found Ju in her small laboratory behind the house. She was carefully documenting the growth patterns of native plants that had begun to integrate with Earth species. "The patrol captain sent another message," Krul said. "The offer of a position remains open." Ju's hand stilled over her samples. "Are you going to accept?" "The role would allow me to help establish protocols for integration of other war beasts into colonial defense," Krul explained. "It is important work." Ju nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral. "I understand. When would you leave?" "I did not say I was leaving," Krul corrected. "I declined the offer." Ju looked up in surprise. "You did? But why? It sounds perfect for you." Krul moved to stand beside her, his massive frame somehow fitting comfortably in the small space. "The work is important, but it can be done by others. My place is here." "Are you sure? You could help so many others like you." "I have submitted detailed reports and will continue to advise remotely," Krul said. "But my primary function remains here." Ju smiled. "Protection duty." "More than that," Krul replied. "I have discovered that there is value in belonging." 3 months later, Krul stood at the edge of the settlement as a transport ship landed. Unlike the patrol cruiser, this was a civilian vessel, and its arrival was expected. When the doors opened, 5 Vander war beasts emerged, each accompanied by a human handler. "The first of the veteran integration program," Mr. Kim explained to the gathered colonists. "They'll be assigned to different settlements across New Terra." Krul stepped forward to meet them. The other Vander recognized him immediately, their sensory stalks extending in the traditional greeting of their kind. "Welcome to New Terra," Krul said in the clicking language of the Vander. "You are not weapons here. You are protectors." One of the Vander, missing part of one limb and bearing scars across its carapace, responded, "We have watched the recordings of your defense. Is it true that you chose to stay when offered positions elsewhere?" "It is true," Krul confirmed. "Why?" another asked. Krul's compound eyes shifted toward where Ju stood with her family. "Because here, I am not defined by what I was built to do, but by what I choose to do." That night, as the twin moons of New Terra rose over the valley, Krul joined Ju on the hill overlooking the colony. She was using a specialized scanner to track the movement of nocturnal creatures. "The new Vander seem to be settling in well," she observed. "They will adapt," Krul said. "As I have." Ju smiled up at him. "When I found you at that auction, I never imagined all of this would happen." "Nor did I," Krul admitted. "I expected only to serve until I was no longer useful." And now, Krul's sensory stalk extended upward, taking in the stars above them, the same stars he had once fought beneath, but which now looked different somehow. "Now I understand that usefulness is not determined by design alone," he said. "It is determined by choice." As they sat together watching the moons rise, Krul reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. From the birthing pools of the Vander Imperium to an auction block where he had expected to end. From a war machine to a guardian. From a tool to a friend. Sometimes, Krul thought, the most valuable second chances come from those who see not what you were built for, but what you could become. And in the quiet of the night, beneath the stars of his new home, the old war dog found peace. Ju sat beside him in silence for a moment. "You were amazing last night. The way you moved. I've never seen anything like it." "It is what I was created to do," Krul said. Then, after a pause, he added, "But it has never felt like this before." "Like what?" "Necessary," Krul answered. "Before, I fought because I was ordered to fight. Last night, I fought because there was something worth protecting." Ju smiled and leaned against his armored side, careful to avoid his wound. "I think you found your real purpose, Krul." Together, they watched as the sun rose over their home, safe once more because an old war dog had found something worth fighting for. The Galactic Patrol ship descended through New Terra's atmosphere with a roar that echoed across the valley. It had taken 7 days for help to arrive after the colony's automated distress beacon had activated. 7 days during which the colonists had kept the mercenaries contained in a makeshift holding area, with Kurul standing guard day and night. "Look at that," Ju said, pointing to the sky as the sleek patrol cruiser approached. They'd finally made it. Kurul stood beside her, his war harness removed, but his stance no less vigilant. The wound in his side had mostly healed, though the exoskeleton remained discolored where the mercenary leader's weapon had struck him. "Their response time is inadequate for frontier defense," Kurul observed. Mr. Kim laughed. "Good thing we had you, then." As the patrol ship landed, colonists gathered to meet it. 2 officers in crisp blue uniforms emerged, followed by a medical team and 6 security personnel. "I am Captain Hannah Lee of the Galactic Patrol," the lead officer announced. "We received your distress signal. Is everyone safe?" Officer Park stepped forward. "We are, thanks to Kurul." Captain Lee's eyes widened as she noticed the Vander war beast standing at the edge of the crowd. "Is that a combat model Vander? I thought they were all decommissioned." "Kurul is a member of our colony," Mr. Kim said firmly, "and the reason we're all still alive." Over the next hours, the patrol officers took statements from the colonists and secured the mercenary prisoners. Captain Lee reviewed the colony's security recordings, which showed Kurul's decisive actions during the attack. "This is remarkable," she said, watching Kurul move with impossible speed through the settlement. "I've never seen a war beast operate independently like this. Usually, they require direct commands." "Kurul doesn't need commands," Ju said proudly. "He makes his own decisions." That evening, Captain Lee requested a private meeting with Kurul and the Kim family. "I've sent the recordings of Kurul's defense to Galactic Patrol headquarters," she told them. "They're already talking about using it for training purposes." "Is that unusual?" Mrs. Kim asked. "Very," Captain Lee replied. "The patrol has always been hesitant about working with war beasts due to control concerns, but Kurul has demonstrated something unprecedented: tactical independence combined with ethical restraint." She turned to Kurul. "You could have killed those mercenaries easily, but you chose to disable them instead." Kurul's mandibles clicked softly. Lethal force was unnecessary to achieve the objective. "That kind of judgment is exactly what makes this situation so unique," Captain Lee said. "The patrol would be very interested in bringing you on as a special consultant. Your combat experience would be invaluable for training." Ju looked alarmed. "You want to take Kurul away?" "It would be his choice," Captain Lee clarified. "With compensation, of course, and full legal recognition as a sentient contractor rather than equipment." Kurul remained silent, his compound eyes unreadable. 2 weeks after the patrol ship departed with the prisoners, the colony received a message packet from Galactic Central. The recordings of Kurul's defense had indeed spread throughout human space, generating intense debate about the status of veteran war beasts. "Look at this," Mr. Kim said during dinner, scrolling through the message. 3 frontier colonies have already requested information about acquiring war beasts like Kurul for protection. And listen to this, Mrs. Kim added. "The Sentient Rights Commission is opening a formal review of the classification of veteran status war beasts, with potential recognition of limited personhood rights." Kurul, who sat with them at meals despite not eating human food, tilted his head. This was not anticipated. From his perch in the tallest tree overlooking the valley, Kurul watched the mercenaries through his compound eyes. His war harness hummed quietly, enhancing his already formidable strength and reflexes. For a moment, he felt the familiar clarity of combat preparation, a state of mind that had defined most of his existence. Yet something was different now. Before, he had fought because he was ordered to fight. This time, he chose to fight. For Ju, for the Kim family, for the colony that had become his home. Kurul moved silently back toward the settlement, where Ju was organizing the defense according to his instructions. "The irrigation trenches are flooded," she reported when he arrived. Officer Park, and the others have positioned the pulse rifles at the points you suggested. Good, Kroll said. The mercenaries will arrive from the north. They will expect to find panicked colonists, not prepared defenders. What about you? Ju asked, looking worried. There are 12 of them with advanced weapons. Kroll's mandibles clicked. I have faced worse odds. But your weapons were taken when I was sold, Kroll finished. But they left me with something more dangerous. What's that? Experience, Kroll said simply. The mercenaries reached the edge of the settlement just before midnight. They moved confidently, their scanner showing only a cluster of life signs in the community center. Looks like they're all hiding in one place, the leader said. Makes our job easier. Set up the sonic disruptors. We'll have them walking out in an orderly line in 10 minutes. As one of her team stepped forward, the ground beneath him suddenly gave way. He fell into a water-filled irrigation trench that had been covered with a thin layer of soil and vegetation. What the leader began, but never finished her sentence. Something massive dropped from above, landing with unexpected silence behind her team. The mercenaries turned, weapons raising. But too late. Kroll moved with terrifying speed. His first strike disabled 2 mercenaries before they could even fire. His armored exoskeleton deflected the few shots that found their mark. The war harness amplified his strength, allowing him to throw 1 mercenary into 3 others, sending them all tumbling down the muddy slope. It's a Vandar war beast. Someone shouted in panic. That's impossible. The leader snapped. Those were all decommissioned years ago. But the evidence was charging toward them, moving through the darkness like a nightmare come to life. The mercenaries retreated toward what looked like an open area, exactly as Kroll had predicted they would. As they reached it, hidden colonists pulled on ropes, and more irrigation channels opened, creating a maze of water-filled trenches that separated the mercenary team into smaller groups. From her position behind a storage building, Ju watched as Kroll leaped across the trenches with ease, engaging each isolated group of mercenaries. He wasn't killing them, she noticed. He was disabling their weapons, damaging their armor, making it impossible for them to fight effectively. The mercenary leader realized too late that they had walked into a trap. Fall back, she ordered. Regroup at the landing site. But the path back was now blocked by colonists with pulse rifles, led by Officer Park. They weren't expert shots, but they didn't need to be. The carefully placed defenders created a crossfire that herded the remaining mercenaries toward the colony's equipment shed. Kroll had positioned himself there, waiting in the shadows, as the 5 remaining mercenaries, including their leader, backed into the open area in front of the shed. He emerged from the darkness. You have one opportunity, Kroll said, his voice carrying in the night air. Surrender your weapons and leave this world. The leader stared at him in disbelief. A talking moor beast. Who's controlling you? I control myself, Kroll replied. This is your only warning. The leader raised her weapon. I don't take orders from equipment. Kroll moved. To the watching colonists, he became almost a blur. When he stopped, all 5 mercenaries were disarmed, their weapons scattered across the ground. The leader's cybernetic eye sparked from damage as she struggled to stand. What are you? She gasped. I am Kroll, he answered simply. Protector of New Terra. As dawn broke over the colony, the mercenaries sat bound in the center of the settlement. Their ship had been located and disabled by a team led by Officer Park, using instructions from Kroll on how to bypass its security systems. Ju found Kroll sitting alone on a hill overlooking the colony. His war harness was damaged from the fight, and a bluish fluid leaked from a wound on his side. You're hurt, she said, kneeling beside him. The damage is minor, Kroll replied. Self-repair systems are functioning. Kroll's movements paused briefly. Your belief does not provide tactical advantage against what comes. Maybe not, Ju admitted, but you're not facing it alone this time. 3 days later, the colony celebrated the completion of a new hydroponics facility. Nearly everyone gathered for the ceremony and shared meal that followed. Cruel attended but remained at the perimeter, his sensory stock constantly moving, scanning. Still on guard duty, Dr. Lee approached, a cup in her hand. Mr. Kim mentioned your concerns. The threat has not passed, Cruel stated. Dr. Lee sighed. Cruel, I've worked with veterans before. Sometimes, the mind holds on to dangers long after they've passed. It's a normal response to trauma. This is not trauma, Cruel said firmly. This is imminent danger. As if to punctuate his statement, a distant boom echoed across the valley. Moments later, the colony's communication system went silent. The colonists looked around in confusion. The power remained on, but all communications devices showed no signal. What was that? Someone asked. EMP targeted at communication systems, Cruel said, already moving. Typical first strike procedure for resource raiders. Resource raiders? Dr. Lee's face paled. Here? Cruel didn't answer. He was already running toward the Kim residence. Juwoo met him halfway. You were right, she said, breathing hard from running. Dad just tried to contact the other settlements. Nothing works. Go to the community shelter, Cruel instructed, his voice shifting to a commanding tone she'd never heard before. Tell everyone to bring whatever weapons they have. What are you going to do? Juwoo asked. Cruel's war harness was already secured to his exoskeleton, the ancient technology humming as it synced with his biology. What I was created to do, he answered. Then, seeing her worried expression, added, but this time, I fight for something that matters. As darkness fell, the colonists huddled in the community shelter, frightened but preparing as best they could. Outside, moving silently despite his size, the old war dog patrolled the perimeter of New Hope. His compound eyes, designed to see in almost complete darkness, caught the first glimpse of figures moving through the distant trees. They had come, just as he knew they would. And this time, Cruel wasn't fighting for masters or profit. He was fighting for home. The mercenaries moved through the darkness with practiced efficiency. There were 12 of them, each wearing lightweight tactical armor and carrying pulse rifles. Their leader, a tall woman with a cybernetic eye enhancement, consulted a handheld scanner. The richest mineral deposits are directly beneath the main settlement, she told her team. Standard procedure. We disable their defenses, evacuate the colonists, extract what we need, and leave them the scraps. What about resistance? Asked one of her team. She snorted. 48 families of farmers and scientists. They have a few old rifles for hunting. Nothing that can stop us. None of them noticed the shadow that moved silently above them, leaping from tree to tree with impossible grace for something so large. In the community shelter, Mr. Kim addressed the frightened colonists. Everyone needs to stay calm, he said. We've sent emergency signals on all frequencies. Help will come. But all communications are down, someone objected. The automated distress beacon uses different technology, he explained, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. For now, we should. The shelter door slid open, and Juwoo slipped inside. Juwoo, her mother rushed to her. Where have you been? We were worried sick. I was with Cruel, she said, pulling out a hand-drawn map. We need to prepare. There are raiders coming. Raiders. The word spread through the room, causing a wave of fear. Cruel spotted them. Juwoo explained. 12 mercenaries with military-grade weapons. They've landed on the North Ridge and are moving toward us. Dr. Lee stepped forward. Juwoo, I know you trust Cruel, but he's been showing signs of trauma response. He might be. He's not imagining things. Juwoo interrupted firmly. I saw them myself. They're real, and they're coming. The colony's security officer, a former police officer from Earth named Officer Park, examined Juwoo's map. If this is accurate, we have maybe 2 hours before they reach the settlement. What can we do with 6 outdated pulse rifles and some farming tools? Cruel has a plan, Juwoo said. But we need to work fast. This was part of his daily routine. While the Vander didn't eat human food, he joined the family at meals, his nutrient intake scheduled for different times. The simple act of sitting with them was important to Jiwoo, so it became important to Kurul. The colony of New Hope consisted of 48 homesteads spread across a fertile valley. Kurul had memorized every path, every building, and every settler's face. The humans had been wary of him at first, but that changed after the ravine incident. 2 months ago, during the heavy rains, the Patel children had been playing too close to a newly formed ravine when the edge collapsed. Kurul, who had been helping reinforce the colony's water filtration system, heard their screams from half a kilometer away. He reached them before anyone else could, extending his body across the gap and using his powerful limbs to pull them to safety just as another section gave way. Since then, children would wave to him, and parents nodded in greeting rather than hurrying away. Kurul finished his perimeter check and joined the Kim family in their modest home. Jiwoo was talking excitedly about a new species of plant she had discovered. It changes color based on soil acidity, she explained, showing images on her datapad. I've been tracking the changes for weeks. Soon you'll have enough data for your first scientific paper, her mother said proudly. Kurul watched Jiwoo's enthusiasm with what might have been fondness, though his alien face revealed little to human observers. His life had found a balance he never thought possible. The nightmares of battle came less frequently now. That afternoon, while helping construct a new storage building, Kurul paused suddenly. His sensory stalk extended fully, quivering slightly. "Something wrong?" asked the colony's engineer. "No," Kurul said after a moment. "A passing atmospheric disturbance." But that evening, it happened again. A vibration in the upper atmosphere, subtle but distinctive. Kurul recognized the pattern. It was the resonance signature of stealth shields used by certain types of vessels, specifically the kind that didn't want to be detected by standard colony sensors. Kurul stood motionless outside the Kim home, all 6 of his limbs planted firmly as he focused his remaining sensory capabilities upward. The vibrations came again, stronger this time. A ship was entering orbit, using technology designed to evade detection. For 3 days, Kurul monitored the vibrations. They grew stronger, then changed pattern, indicating descent. Someone was coming to New Terra, and they didn't want anyone to know. On the 4th day, Jiwoo found Kurul in the storage shed behind their home. He had opened a container he'd brought from the auction, one that held his war harness. "Kurul, what are you doing?" she asked, concerned. Kurul's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation she had rarely seen. "Preparing." "For what?" "We have visitors," he said simply, lifting the complex harness that amplified his already formidable strength and provided mounting points for weapons he no longer possessed. Jiwoo frowned. "The supply ship isn't due for 2 weeks." "Not the supply ship. Something else." Kurul's voice was flat. "Something hiding." That evening, Mr. Kim found them still in the shed, where Kurul was explaining what he had detected. "Kurul, the colony's sensors haven't picked up anything," Mr. Kim said gently. "Are you sure this isn't a memory? Dr. Lee mentioned you might experience episodes related to your past." Kurul's compound eyes fixed on him. "This is not an episode. The vibration patterns are consistent with Celsian stealth technology. I encountered it during the border conflicts in the Mira sector." "Dad, we should listen to him," Jiwoo insisted. "Kurul wouldn't make this up." Mr. Kim looked troubled. "I'll mention it to the Colony Council, but without evidence." That night, Kurul did not power down for his rest cycle. He stood outside the Kim home, sensory stalk extended, monitoring. The vibrations had stopped, which meant the ship had landed. Somewhere on New Terra, intruders were moving under cover of darkness. The next morning, Jiwoo found Kurul polishing his war harness. "You still believe something's coming," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. The council thinks you're having flashbacks," Jiwoo said quietly. "Dad told me they discussed it last night. Dr. Lee wants to examine you." Kroll continued his methodical work. Your doctor cannot detect what I feel. Ju sat beside him. I believe you. Later that night, when most passengers were sleeping, Ju asked Kroll about his past. She sat wrapped in a blanket as the temperature in the cargo bay dropped for the ship's night cycle. I was created in the Vander birthing pools, Kroll began. We emerged fully grown but without knowledge. They implanted combat skills directly into our brains. That sounds painful, Ju said. It was efficient, Kroll replied. I served the Imperium for 12 years before their fall. Then I was sold to human military contractors. Were you always a soldier? Kroll's sensory stalk lowered slightly. It is all I know. What was the hardest battle? Ju asked. Kroll was silent for a long moment. The one where I lost my unit. 7 other Vander. We had fought together for 9 years. They were my broodkin. Ju heard something in his voice she hadn't detected before. You miss them. Miss is not a concept war beasts are supposed to understand, Kroll said. But yes, I miss them. Ju moved closer. I miss people too. My older brother stayed on Earth for university. I haven't seen him in 3 years. But he lives, Kroll noted. Yes, Ju admitted. Though sometimes it doesn't feel like it. Space makes people feel very far away. Kroll nodded. Distance and death are not so different in how they separate. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. What will you do on New Terra? Kroll asked eventually. Ju brightened. I'm going to study the native life forms. The planet has the most amazing ecosystem. Plants that communicate through spores, animals that can change their genetic structure based on their environment. I want to be a xenobiologist, someone who studies alien life. And you will study me as well? Kroll asked. Ju blushed. No. I mean, unless you wanted. I just meant. It was a joke, Kroll said, his mandibles clicking rapidly. I am attempting humor. Ju stared at him in surprise, then burst out laughing. You made a joke. Was it successful? Yes, she said, still giggling. Very successful. On the final day before reaching New Terra, Ju noticed Kroll standing perfectly still, his sensory stalk extended toward the viewport. What is it? She asked. I am memorizing the star patterns, he said. If I became separated from the colony, I would need navigation references. Ju felt a chill. Are you worried about that? It is wise to prepare for all scenarios, Kroll said. Then, noticing her expression, he added, but I do not plan to leave you, Ju Kim. You have given me purpose beyond combat. I will honor that gift. Ju smiled. We'll take care of each other. As the ship prepared for final approach to New Terra, Ju received another message from her parents. They had reluctantly accepted her decision, but warned that Kroll would be closely monitored. They're still worried, she told Kroll. As they should be, he replied. I was built for war, not peace. Ju looked up at the massive war beast beside her. Maybe you were built for both, and no one gave you the chance to find out. Kroll's compound eyes fixed on her. Perhaps we will discover this together. As the ship began its descent, Ju wasn't sure who was more nervous, her or Kroll. But as they stood side by side looking out at the approaching planet, she knew one thing for certain. Neither of them was alone anymore. The sun rose over New Terra's eastern hills, casting long shadows across the Kim family's homestead. Kroll moved the heavy irrigation pipes with ease, positioning them exactly as Ju's father had instructed. 6 months had passed since their arrival, and the old war beast had found a routine that brought him unexpected peace. Those would have taken me all day, Mr. Kim said, wiping sweat from his brow as he approached. Thank you, Kroll. Kroll's mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. The weight is insignificant to my frame. Mr. Kim smiled. He had been skeptical of his daughter's choice at first, but Kroll had proven himself valuable many times over. Will you join us for the morning meal? I will come after I check the perimeter, Kroll replied. How much to buy him? The assistant blinked in surprise. This unit isn't meant for civilian ownership, especially not for a minor. Where are your parents? My parents are setting up our homestead on New Jeju. I'm authorized to acquire a protection unit for our colony. She held up an official-looking document on her tablet. And I have the credits right here. The assistant scanned the document and frowned. Even if you're authorized, this particular unit is problematic. Its combat experience has made it unpredictable. For a frontier colony, you'd be better off with. I think its combat experience is exactly what we need, she said. How much? The assistant sighed. 5,000 credits. But I must strongly advise against. I'll take him. She transferred the credits immediately. For the first time in years, Kroll felt something besides resignation. This small human had chosen him when everyone else saw only scrap material. She had looked at his battle-worn body and seen value. What is your designation? He asked as the containment field powered down. My name is Ju, she answered with a smile. And you're not just a bio unit. You have a name too, right? Kroll, he said, stepping carefully from the platform. I am Kroll. Ju nodded, unafraid as the massive war beast towered over her. Well, Kroll, we have a colony transport to catch. I think you're going to like New Jeju. We need someone who knows how to protect others. As they walked away from the auction block, Kroll's sensory stalk swiveled, taking in the stunned faces of other bidders. For the first time since his creation, he was not being sent to war or sold as a weapon. He was being taken to a home. And for reasons his programming couldn't explain, it felt significant. The colony transport ship Horizon Dawn hummed as it traveled through hyperspace. Most passengers stayed far away from the cargo bay where Ju had set up a small area for Kroll. The old war beast sat with his limbs folded neatly beneath him on a simple sleeping mat. Is this comfortable enough? Ju asked, arranging the few things she'd been able to buy after spending most of her savings on Kroll. It is more than adequate, Kroll replied. His mandibles clicked softly. A sound Ju was learning might be the Vander equivalent of a sigh. I have slept on battlefields with nothing but rubble beneath me. Ju frowned. That sounds terrible. It was normal, Kroll said. He watched as the girl pulled out a small container of food she brought for herself. You should not spend your mealtime here. The other humans are afraid of me. Let them be afraid, Ju said, opening her container. I'm not. Kroll's remaining sensory stalk twitched. Your parents are not pleased with your purchase. Ju winced. The message from her parents had been clear. They'd expected her to buy a standard protection unit, something simple and obedient, not a battle-scarred war beast with unpredictable behavioral patterns, as the auctioneer had warned. They'll understand when they meet you, she said with more confidence than she felt. They just don't know you yet. And you do? Kroll asked. Ju looked up at him. I'm starting to. Over the next 3 days, as the ship made its way toward the outer colonies, Ju spent every free moment with Kroll. Ship regulations required the war beast to remain in the cargo bay, but Ju turned it into their private world. Why did you choose me? Kroll asked on the second day. The Mordai units were superior in every specification. Ju was sitting cross-legged in front of him, working on a small device. The Mordai can't think for themselves. They just follow orders. Many would consider that an advantage. Not on New Terra, Ju said. Our colony is 3 days from the nearest help. We need someone who can make decisions if things go wrong. She looked up at him. Besides, I saw how you were watching everything at the auction. You were analyzing threats, escape routes, defensive positions. You were still being a protector, even with no one to protect. Kroll's mandibles clicked again. Observation is habit. It's more than habit, Ju said. It's who you are. On the third day, Ju brought Kroll a small handheld data terminal. Your translator implant is outdated, she explained. This has newer language files. It should help us communicate better. Kroll carefully took the small device and connected it to the port behind his mandible. His compound eyes flickered as he processed the new information. "This is generous," Kroll said, his speech now clearer and less mechanical. "Why do you invest resources in me?" Jiwoo smiled. "That's what friends do." "Friends," Kroll repeated the word as if testing it. "War beasts are not designed for friendship. Were you designed to save those miners at Proxima?" "No, that was a tactical decision." "Exactly," Jiwoo said. "You're more than your design." Kroll stood motionless in his containment field at the Galactic Reclamation auction. The cold metal floor pressed against his 6 lower limbs. After 37 years of service, the old Vander war beast knew what came next. No one wanted outdated war models like him anymore. The auction hall buzzed with activity. Wealthy merchants, colony representatives, and private collectors moved from display to display. They barely glanced at Kroll's enclosure before moving on to newer, shinier options. Bio Unit 7349V, Vander Combat Series, announced the automated system above his containment field, specialized in planetary assault and defensive operations. Warning: Unit has sustained multiple combat modifications and shows signs of independent tactical development. That last part always made potential buyers hurry away. Independence wasn't valued in war beasts. They wanted obedience, not thinking. Kroll shifted slightly, his armored exoskeleton making a soft clicking sound. The movement revealed the jagged scar across his thorax, where a plasma cannon had nearly ended him during the Rigel conflict. His left sensory stalk was completely missing, torn off while defending a mining outpost from raiders. The right one twitched occasionally, scanning the crowd out of habit. Final auction block in 30 minutes, came the announcement over the hall speakers. Kroll knew what that meant. Unsold units would be sent for recycling. His organic components would become nutrient paste for growing new war beasts. His cybernetic parts would be stripped for rare metals. It was the way of things. He had outlived his usefulness. Across the hall, sleek new Mordai hunter units stood in perfect formation, their chrome-plated limbs gleaming under the lights. They were the favorites now, faster, more obedient, and without the psychological scaring that plagued veterans like him. Kroll had served 3 different masters. First the Vander Imperium that created him, then a human military contractor after the Imperium fell, and finally a frontier security firm that went bankrupt last year. Each transfer had come with memory wipes that never quite worked properly. He remembered too much. "This one looks sad," said a soft voice. Kroll's remaining sensory stalk swiveled downward. A human female stood before his containment field. She was small, a juvenile by human standards, perhaps 14 Earth years. She wore simple colony clothes, not the flashy outfits of the wealthy auction-goers. "It's not sad, miss," said the auction assistant hovering nearby. "War beasts don't feel emotions like we do. It's just old and probably malfunctioning. I wouldn't get too close." The girl ignored him and stepped closer to the field. "His eyes look sad to me." Kroll tilted his head slightly. Humans often misinterpreted Vander expressions. His compound eyes couldn't show emotion the way human eyes did. Yet something about her observation disturbed him. "What happened to your antenna?" she asked, pointing to his missing sensory stalk. "Bio units aren't permitted to engage with potential buyers without authorization," the assistant said quickly. The girl frowned. "But he can understand me, right?" "Technically, yes. All units have basic translation abilities, but—" "I lost it defending the Proxima mining colony," Kroll said, his translation unit converting his clicks and vibrations into human speech. His voice emerged metallic and deep. 43 humans survived because I held the position." The assistant's eyes widened in alarm. "Units are not supposed to speak unprompted. This confirms my concerns about its independent subroutines. I'll need to report this malfunction." But the girl's face lit up. "You remember that, even though they said you'd had memory wipes." Cruel's mandibles clicked together softly. Some memories cannot be erased. The assistant floated nervously between them. Miss, perhaps you'd like to see the new Mordai units. Much more reliable, and they come with a 10-year warranty. No, she said firmly. I want to know more about this one. The girl checked a small data tablet she pulled from her pocket. She seemed to be calculating something. How many battles have you been in? She asked Cruel. 117 major engagements, 422 minor conflicts. She whistled softly. And you survived all of them? Affirmative. What else can you do besides fight? Cruel paused. No one had ever asked him that question before. I can navigate by stellar positioning. I can identify 8,000 toxic substances harmful to most carbon-based life forms. I can construct emergency shelters from available materials. I can. He stopped himself. I have many non-combat functions. The assistant was growing increasingly uncomfortable. Miss, this unit is scheduled for recycling. It's outdated technology. The independence issues alone make it unsuitable for... How much? The girl interrupted. Pardon.